Well, be one of the first to not give up the seat on you on the bus, because we have a long way to go. Our democracy needs you. If you're tired of being stopped on the and you make these complaints saying the man's keeping me back, what are you doing to change that? That is my plea to you. Get out of your seat at home playing the games and be a part of society in our communities. That's my piece.
Thank you so much, Colonel. Straight from Hawaii, 80
Yeah.
degrees.
Yeah.
When you feel good, you got a good message, I tell you,
Yes.
brother. Anyway, Rosetta,
Yes.
now 22 years on the police force and then another 21 as director of the Victim Witness Program, which was sort of like a natural progression. Explain to us exactly what the Victim Witness Program did and how they were a great asset to people in the community.
Well, the Victim Witness Program is housed in the Portsmouth Commonwealth Attorney's Office. It's a grant-funded position, and the job of the program is to assist crime victims as they go through the criminal justice process. Some persons don't know anything about the criminal justice system until someone is unfortunately arrested, and a lot of people think what happens on television and court television shows is the way it happens for real, but it doesn't. And we were there to assist them, to give them knowledge of the process, what to expect going to court. We assisted them in crime, in situations where if you were a victim of a crime, our unit helped you prepare to go to court. We assisted them in getting compensation, getting their medical bills paid. We also met with witnesses, victims of crime, to let them know what services were available. We were responsible for getting witnesses to court, because sometimes we have witnesses and victims of crime. Once the crime has been committed, they go on and move away. We were responsible for getting those witnesses here, getting them back here. I was responsible for making the hotel arrangements, getting the plane tickets, providing transportation to and from the airport, bringing them to the hotels in the city of Portsmouth. We also made arrangements for persons without transportation to come to court. In situations where the victim was a child, we would assist child victims in preparing to come to court. We would go to court, prior to the trial date to get them comfortable with the court. We did what was a courtroom tour, explain to them where they would be seated in the courtroom, explain to them who would be in the courtroom, what everyone's job was in the courtroom, to kind of get them a little bit more comfortable with coming to court. And situations where a person was killed through no fault of their own and were not engaged in criminal activity, we assisted them in getting certain funeral bills paid, because not everyone has life insurance, and there's funding available to pay for funeral expenses. And we also were responsible for getting counseling for crime victims' families, and we were advocates for those persons in the criminal justice process, and whether or not the case went to court or not, but that was our responsibility.
So, Rosetta, under which Commonwealth attorneys did you serve?
When I first went there, I served under Martin Bullock.
Okay, another great Norcomite.
Yes, he was the Commonwealth attorney at the time. And then I served under Earl Mobley.
Okay.
And Earl Mobley ultimately became a judge. Mm-hmm. And after Earl Mobley, it was Stephanie Morales, the first Black female Commonwealth attorney in the city of Portsmouth. So they were the three Commonwealth attorneys I served under. And there were interim Commonwealth attorneys between those three, but I was there for 21 years. And one thing about going to the Commonwealth Attorney Victim Witness Program immediately following my career in law enforcement, when I left the department, I was the director of training. So I knew all of the officers on the police department. So that was kind of a continuation as far as my career in criminal justice. And I stayed there 21 years. So after I left, There was a whole new crop of police officers because now I know very few of them.
Rosetta, you talked about this, the grant. You worked under the grant for the Victims Witness Program. Is that a DOJ federal grant, or is it a renewable grant, or is that something from the state or a city puts that out?
It's a grant it's a grant funded position through the state of Virginia. Some funding does come from federal government, and it is a renewable grant. When I first went there, the grant was renewable every year, and we had to reapply every year. And then it went to every 2 years. And I believe now the grant is renewable after 3 years. So you apply for the funds and you prepare your budget for the next 3 years or 2 years, whatever the case may be. And then you had to reapply. So that grant has been in its existence, I believe, since 1987, I believe. It was in the 1980s when Portsmouth first got the grant, and the grant has been renewable ever since then.
Mm-hmm.
If a young person would like to serve in the Victim Witness Program in your capacity, what road would they need to take in order to prepare themselves for that job?
Well, when I went there, you had to have a degree in one of the social sciences, and they're looking for people that have had may have worked with victims of crime, but basically someone that could be empathetic and someone that's have a caring nature and will be willing to support persons who've been through horrifying situations and be able to support them and guide them through that process. And I think you still have to have a social sciences degree. I may be mistaken now, but if you've had any experience with helping young people, children, or persons in mental health crisis situations, those are the type of persons that the grant programs are looking for.
And Rosetta, when you were in sort of switching again, and I guess this sort of tied in with the victim witness too, but when you're on the force, you were involved one time with sex crime.
Yes, I was a sex crime investigator for 6 years.
So, I mean, sometimes that had to get kind of personal sometimes, because those things can get kind of, especially getting witnesses to speak up and go after their accusers, the people that, violated them. So how difficult that was?
How difficult was that?
Yes, and getting people to really step forward, especially women, because you see the situations now where women step up 20 years later.
Yes.
But it was so important for them to speak up, when it happened, when things were fresh.
As an investigator, I was responsible for getting that first full interview from a crime victim. So I saw them usually immediately following the incident, and I usually met them in the emergency room of the local hospitals, and was my responsibility to find out what happened, who did it, if they know who did it, and get that person arrested. But you have to be empathetic and let the victim know that you were there with them and you believe them, and you can't color code it and make it seem like it's gonna be a pleasant experience, but it's not gonna be a pleasant experience. You have to let them know that you will be there for them, and just help them along the way. And once the initial contact, if you have a good initial contact with the crime victim, then you usually had good rapport with them. And once they went to court and knew that you were still there with them, that helped a lot. And then when I went to the victim witness program, there's someone else there to assist the crime victim, because whenever they're a victim went to court, someone in the program will be with them throughout the criminal justice process. Every time there was a court appearance, an advocate from the victim witness program was there with them in court. And you would talk to them, you would counsel them. There are many, many times where I sat in the courtroom with a crime victim and held their hands. I let them cry on my shoulders. I gave out a whole lot of hugs, and sometimes even when the suspect was not arrested, you still kept in contact with those victims and let them know that you were there for them. And sometimes it would be years later before someone was apprehended, because it's a lot of times when you're a crime victim, you find out who your friends are, and sometimes the friends weren't there to support, and sometimes you are the only person with them. The victim witness person was there, the police detective was there, and the prosecutor was there, and we were their support persons. And when I was in the sex crimes unit, we investigated crimes involving children as well as adults. And it was in the late it was the mid 1980s when we started getting more and more reports of child sexual assault victims. And for many, many years, the victims were reluctant to come forward. And a lot of times those victims were raised in a household that sort of like wanted to keep it within the family. They didn't want you going out and talking about it. And there were usually cases where children would go to school or confide in a friend. And that's when they find out that what's happening to them is not the norm. They find out that it's wrong. And it was during that time that I had my first child, and that was the time that I found out that those crimes were getting the best of me. And I can remember sometimes going home and just sitting down and crying, and I was wondering why is it affecting me now? Because it never affected me before. Then a light bulb went on in my head. Now I'm a mother, and so I felt and saw things a lot differently. And when I left the sex crimes unit, is because I needed to get out.
That's so important to have someone or to know people. That's one of the reasons for this program, for these radio programs, to let people know that it's help out there and it's people that care, because it all ties in with some of our students that are in school that might not be doing well because we don't know what's going on in their household. And so often nobody talks about it. So as long as they know they have some place to go where they can be consoled and protected while they get those victims, if they're in the house, out of the house. So
yeah, because we work closely with Department of Social Services, because in instances where victims were children, and that's a lot to get a child to repeat again and again what happened to them. During the time that I was in sex crimes, we sort of wanted to make those instances fewer and fewer. So we social service worker and the police detective a lot of times like to do the interview together, so they wouldn't have to keep saying it over and over again. And when I was in victim witness program, like I said, there was counseling available. Even though we were their advocate and we sat there and held their hands and counseled them and advised them, a lot of times those victims need more than just, what we gave them. So we preferred them to other agencies throughout the, the cities in the entire water area for follow-up mental health counseling.
And that was important.
That's important. Rosetta, since you talked about, you got a long history in sexual crimes, and then it starts to remind me of DNA. And I had to ask you about DNA because DNA does not lie. So if I got a child that doesn't want to speak up, and have got this DNA experts, samples here, and then I can't find the perp, and then 10 years later, he or she does it again, and it shows up those two connections of the DNA. How long is that DNA being kept on shelf?
How long?
Yeah, is it kept in the repository?
Forever.
Forever, yes.
Just basically, because when I was in sex crimes, DNA was not in use. Nobody talked about DNA. And luckily for the people in the Tidewater area, we had a chemist at the Norfolk Department of Forensic Sciences who saved samples of all those sexual assault crimes. And she saved a little bit of the evidence that contained the DNA, because she knew one day DNA would be important. So they were able to go back years later and make arrests. And when the scientists, the chemists did that, she didn't tell anybody, but it was there, and we were able to go back. And it was very, very critical, and it was good thinking on her part that one day the technology would be there for us. Because when I was in sex crimes, we would process a crime scene, we would send the evidence over to the lab, and we got, blood types and things of that sort. But, you really did a whole lot of door-to-door, basically canvassing the crime scene, going to neighbors, knocking on doors and things of that sort. You did a whole lot of investigating to try to find witnesses that help you get your case together. But DNA was not one of those things. And now that's, and we have it as a great tool, and then it should be used only as a tool, but not just the only thing you look for, because you still needed other supporting evidence.
Right. Good
Well,
point.
Switching back to when you came on the police force, I'm thinking now about the fact that the police department is trying to recruit young people now. I'm especially thinking about young females. What would your advice be for them to prepare themselves mentally and physically to make a decision as to whether they want to be a part of the police department?
Well, they could talk to an officer, someone that they know, and to find out exactly what it is, what they do every day. And I still believe they have something called ride along programs, where you can ride along with a police officer, just on a normal tour of duty. But as far as academically, there are a lot of criminal justice programs through the local colleges and universities, and that's the way to go, to get that background knowledge, get in a criminal justice type program, and find out exactly what happens when you're investigating crime. I would strongly suggest that they have them in most community colleges, and I was advised them to go into the criminal justice field.
Okay, and with your minority police officers group that you're a part of, would you all be planning to start some type of mentoring program outside of the police department asking you? Would you all be willing to start a mentoring program for young people who may want to go into law enforcement?
Well, that's an issue we've had for years. We are always available to assist anyone. We have put on efforts, events to get people to come to us for assistance. Very few people sought out our assistance, and I don't know why, but we have put on efforts, events. We had cookouts, we had dinners, we had, we invited people to come to the meetings, and they'll come a few times, and you didn't see them anymore. The only time you saw them is when they got in some hot water, and once you helped them out, then they were gone, and you didn't see them anymore. We're here, we're still here, but you can make the offer so many times, and after a while, it's up to them.
I had the same problem in the military. You call me, you know who I am, and you know who we are. And when you get in hot water, now you ring my phone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And or others, you get in hot water, then you call in NAACP and you call in this and that. But then you, after things have died down, it's like crickets.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame.
Yes.
So I know what you're saying.
We've gotten older now. But our program has been in existence since 1988. Mm-hmm. And we often sent letters to the new minority police officers that were being hired to tell them about our programs, and you see them a couple of times, and then you didn't see them anymore.
Yeah, they think they know it all.
Yes. go into the schools and talk to the young folks, or create a Facebook page or something, because that's where all of them are.
Well, the young people are not on Facebook anymore. You're gonna have to go to Instagram and all those other things to get them.
Do some TikTok videos or something.
TikTok video.
But anyway, yeah. Rosetta, I saw a interview with you and Jervis, GA, and Willie Mills, Buttnose, and you all talked about community policing and how important those programs were to creating that relationship between the police officers and the communities. And we don't have that program, at least not to the extent it was then. And the crime rate, especially last year, was really high. And it's been different times over the years where the crime rate has been high in the city of Portsmouth. But how much do you think a good, strong community policing program would contribute to lowering the crime rate, or, putting the citizens in more position to trust the police and to talk more about what they see out there? Because, the criminals are the ones that are threatening them, say, you better not talk.
Well, I believe it's a good concept, a good program, a very strong community policing program is very important and vital for the community, because the citizens have someone they can go to. You don't have to go to them, just call them. You can text them, you can call them. And a lot of people don't want the police coming to their door, but you don't have to come to the door. You can call them on the phone or send them an email or a text, and those officers readily gave out their cell phone numbers and their contact information. And there was someone that was hands-on, someone they could go to, and those programs I thought were very vital.
Well, I like.
Yeah, I remember when they had the strong program, I had the number or a good relationship with our police officer, community police officer.
Right.
And one night he called me and said, you might not want to come home now, because the SWAT team was on my front porch. The house next door. And they had, and no telling what I would have wrote up on if he hadn't, called me, or I didn't have that relationship. And he had it with all our civic league members at the time, and he felt comfortable, and they felt comfortable calling him for non-emergency issues.
Yeah, because those officers aren't there just for emergency situations. They are there for day-to-day living in the community. And there are issues that you come upon every day that's not necessarily law enforcement related, but that was that contact person that could refer you on to get whatever service you needed, because that was the contact person, and that person was hands-on, and they made sure you referred to where you needed to be referred to.
Well, I like to just say, for those who are coming on late, I just got a question. We are speaking this morning to Ms. Rosetta Brown, who served on the Uniform Patrol, the Detective Division, as a sex crime investigator, police liaison officer, and in police training. She was also the first African-American female sergeant and lieutenant in the Portsmouth Police Department. And this morning we learned that she is the first and the last African-American lieutenant to have served, female lieutenant to have served on the Portsmouth Police Department.
Black female lieutenant.
Black female lieutenant. Yeah. Okay.
I like to say hello to,
came on late.
I like to say hello to, on Facebook, Letitia Morgan, who says, Rosetta, you were an inspiration to her. And those who know Letitia, she was she worked in the Portsmouth Police Department very hard, and she says wants to pass on that you were an inspiration to her. So
thank you very much, Miss Letitia. Yes, she was a hard worker in crime prevention.
Yes, yes. Well, we're coming about to the end of our program, and we really like to thank you, Rosetta, for coming on and sharing your experience on the Portsmouth Police Department.
And I really thank you for getting me up this early.
Yeah,
you're welcome. Rosetta, join me.
This is a daily routine, I didn't. But anyway, I told Leah, don't worry about it. She gets up this time every day anyway. So.
Yeah, but I don't have people looking at me.
Yeah, how about it? Got to get the hair did and all that. But anyway, we truly like to thank you for coming on, and I'm sure you enlightened some people out there about your experience, and hopefully you encourage fellow citizens who might be thinking about the police department. Of course, we're shorthanded now, and we really need some good people. And one of the things now, I hope that a mental, well, I'm not going to go there. I guess police officers out here now, sometimes they might skip over a needed mental evaluation because they're not prepared to handle certain situations out there. But, just had to throw that in. But not in the city of Portsmouth. We all straight here. But anyway, I have to walk those words back now. But anyway, again, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And thank you, Jervis, over there in the background for your service as well. Hopefully down the road we have you on here to hear about your experiences. And I'm
make sure it's at 6:30 in the morning too.
But anyway, before we go off, we like to end also with repeating the citizens that we honored here today. So Leah, if you would.
Okay. This morning, during Women in History Month, we saluted two women. The Norcom mystique, as some called it, has been the downfall of many politicians and has launched the careers of many politicians. Today, during Women in History Month, Portsmouth Coffee Talk salutes a woman who has been first in many arenas. Today, we salute Dolores Overton Short. In the early 70s, on the heels of school integration, when the city began making plans to turn the formerly all-Black Norcom High School into a vocational center, Dolores Overton, now the city registrar and a key player in the Norcom Alumni Association, was 18 then. She joined hundreds of students who boycotted classes in protest. Also, while still in high school, a student of 18 years of age, she ran for city council and she won 4,000 votes. Dolores has also served as president of the IC Norcom Alumni Association. In 1993, she became the first Black city registrar in Portsmouth and in Hampton Roads. Dolores Overton has served the citizens of Portsmouth by running an efficient office and has never had any of the problems faced by many registrars' office. Today, during Women in History Month, Portsmouth Coffee Talk salutes James, Miss Dolores Overton Short, a trailblazer in the city of Portsmouth.
Class of 72.
Good morning. Okay, so during this Women in History Month, the Portsmouth Coffee Talk also salutes Dr. Darlene Sparks Washington. She's a Portsmouth native, trained as a podiatrist, and now the executive director of Portsmouth Volunteer for the Homeless. There she does what she said she was made to do, help people get through rough times. Dr. Washington graduated from IC Norcom High School in the class of 78. She attended Hampton University, where she earned an undergraduate degree in biology. At Hampton, where she learned about podiatry, she changed her mind about studying to be a pediatrician. She earned a doctorate at the New York College of Pediatric Medicine. But podiatry, as she learned, didn't fulfill her. She moved back to Portsmouth and taught personal and community health at Norfolk State University. And she also volunteered for the Red Cross, where she served for more than 20 years. Her final position was as the Director for Preparedness in Washington, D.C. At a professional workshop, someone asked her what would her dream job be. She said that she wanted to be the executive director for a community-based organization that serves as a one-stop shop for people. It would help them navigate social services, public health, skills building, life management. So she applied to PVH, where she serves as of today. So she continues to serve in her dream job at Portsmouth Volunteer for the Homeless. Darlene, during Women in History Month, Dr. Sparks Washington, we salute you.
Hey, Rosetta, I have to read this to you. Terry Butler, who is the
yeah.
choir director over at Norfolk State, and he directed the choir for a while at IC Norcom. But he wants you to come speak to his music majors during career day about the opportunities in the police force. I guess he'll be creating some singing police officers. I don't know, but anyway, that's an opportunity for you to go over there and speak to them, and he's putting that out there for you. I joke about that, but I think that's a legitimate invite. So thanks, Terry. Appreciate that. And again, thank you for coming on, and thank everybody for watching. On you were listening on WGPL 1350 and watching on Facebook Live as we Zoom here with our special guest, Rosetta Brown. Bates Brown.
Class of 1970.
Class of 1970.
Oh, it hurts my heart.
Lord have mercy.
But we were taught at IC Norcom all our classes were special. So that's why we are so adamant about each one of our classes being the best.
Exactly.
And it turns out that each one of our classes was the best.
My class, of course. But anyway.
Okay, we're going to end right there. Oh, unless any of the hosts have any closing remarks, or Rosetta, if you have any closing remarks you'd like to share with us.
I would just like to thank Rosetta, and I feel especially honored with her being on this morning, in as much as Sheriff Michael Moore and the Portsmouth Sheriff's Department saluted her last year in our Night of Law Enforcement Excellence. And so that excellence she continues to share with us on this morning. So thank you so very, very much for coming out this morning to be with us on Portsmouth Coffee Talk.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. I remember that that night too. I believe that was probably the last night we dressed up, because after that we went into lockdown.
That is very true.
Yeah, and I'd like to say, Rosetta, thank you for your service, and thank you for what you've done in the past and what you're going to contribute in the future, especially as you go over to Norfolk State and talk to the music majors over there. So I'll put that plug in right there.
Okay.
Yes.
The other great institution in this area.
Yeah, class of 1975 here.
Oh Lord, oh Lord. Well, anyway, next we're gonna have two women education that they're also Norfolk State grads. Boy, I tell you. But anyway, wherever the excellence comes from, we will bring it to you, even if it's at Norfolk State. But anyway, let's honor women in education, and please join us. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day and a great week.
And
remember that Portsmouth Coffee Talk, our voice,
our community,
and our future.
All right. Thank you, host.
Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rosetta.